Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming to our talk today. We are members of the Android UX team, and we're excited today to talk to you about the new notifications features in O from a UX perspective. So I'm Julie. I'm a researcher on the Android team, and today I'll first tell you about the research that inspired the new notifications features in O. So in November of 2015, our team went on what we call a UXpedition to learn more about how people experience notifications. So our team of researchers, designers, engineers, PMs, we all spent a week in New York and New Jersey speaking to and observing users. We approached the topic as attention management to include interruptions from devices, other people around us, ourselves, and everything in your environment. We didn't want to limit our scope to just on-screen smartphone notifications. We used multiple methods in the research. We started by interviewing people. But then we also observed people. Because notifications are so contextual and in the moment, we wanted to observe people receive notifications to see what they would do and how they would react to them. We also had group discussions amongst friends who did design exercises together. And lastly, we synthesized the data together as a team, and we held a workshop later and came up with ideas that turned into the features in O. So what did we learn? The most striking observation we made is that there was this addiction to phones. People were bound to their phones all day because they were afraid they might miss something important. Phone notifications were a major source of stress. People were very hyper-vigilant to any kind of signal they could be getting from their phones, afraid to miss something important. And most notifications were actually not important to them. Only a few were necessary. We heard lots of things like this from our participants. Denise said, "If I don't have my phone for 2 seconds, I freak out. What if I miss something?" And she was a busy lawyer, and I observed her in her house the whole day, constantly going like this, "Where's my phone? Where's my phone?" And she'd leave the room and come back looking for her phone, just really anxious all day, just in case her phone wasn't with her. And then there's Alice, who's a professor. She said, "I wish I could have something like an Amber Alert for my parents, ex-husband, and son's school, so that those would override everything else." She gets lots of notifications from different sources, but the only ones she cares about are these. And she wishes these would always override the others. We observed different coping strategies from users to block out all of this noise. The first one is to physically put the phone away. So people would force themselves to put their phone in a purse, put it in another room. Someone even put it in a box in another room. Just anything to prevent yourself from checking it. The other strategy was to not let the device make noise, so let it just vibrate, or don't even let it vibrate at all. Another strategy was to not let sources contact you. That means to block all notifications from an app. And the last one is to do nothing but be constantly annoyed every day and all day. Stephen, he mentioned a particular social networking app sent me way too many notifications, so I deleted the app. So he got fed up and deleted the app, and actually every day he uses the service in a mobile browser, multiple times a day, purely just so he wouldn't receive notifications. In fact, the pattern that we're hearing now is when people get so annoyed with notifications, whenever they download a new app, by default, they'll just block it all, block all notifications without even giving it a try. This is obviously something we all don't want, so we need to really be careful about this cumulative effect of all of our apps' notifications. People often want only some notifications from an app, but not all of them. So even if they want just one type of notification, they still receive a bunch of unwanted ones. And many people don't adjust their settings even if they know they can. So even if they know there's a way to do it, they might not know how to do it, or it might feel like a hassle, so they just live with the problem. Angie said, "Notifications are like junk mail. You can take the time to set up filters or just hit delete. I just deal with them." She just deals with it every day. Stella said, "If you allow push notifications, I know there's a way to go into settings and adjust it, but I don't know how to do that." So what else did we learn? There were only two types of notifications that people needed to know. The first one, above all, notifications from other people are most important. So these include SMS, messaging apps, emails from people, phone calls, etc. Anything that came from a person on the other end. These were most valued. Flora said, notifications from other people are most important. I always respond. Those are the only ones that she pays attention to. And then there are more important people. So notifications from the inner circle matter even more. So these are people like your spouse, significant other, parents, kids, closest friends. They can reach us at any time, and we keep channels open and reserved for them. Andrew said, work emails and text from my wife are the only things that matter. Basically things I need to tend to so I don't get in trouble. So those are the two types that he cares about, above everything else. The other kind of notification that's important to people are reminders for things that they need to do. So we observed people having things they needed to remember throughout their day, like picking up your dry cleaning, calling a credit card company to follow up with an issue, cleaning a chinchilla cage, if that applies to you, setting up a kid's play date, making new keys for the car, things like that, right? We all have things like this in our lives, and people need to remember these things. David said, sometimes I get a notification for something that I actually want to do, but just not at that moment. And then I forget about it later because I don't see it again. And Shelley says, I know I have to pick up my dry cleaning, but telling me right now is not going to help me. It's like nagging. Tell me when I'm near the dry cleaner. So when a notification isn't addressed right away, it's very easy to forget it. Out of sight, out of mind. We realize that we need to make it easier for people to remember these tasks. So while this research, as I mentioned, was conducted only in New York and New Jersey, we've observed similar patterns in many other studies across many locations since then. Whatever topic we're studying, from productivity to wearables to driving, we keep hearing over and over again from people about the stress and the burden of all the notifications they're being bombarded with. So here are some other locations that we've done where we've heard similar patterns across the US and many cities and internationally. So based on this research, our team felt it's important for us to respect our users' attention and to allow them to have more control. So this inspired some major changes in O this year. Now here's Rachel to give you more details about the features.
Hi, I'm Rachel Garb, and I'm an interaction designer and manager for the Android UX team. The first new feature I want to talk about is channels. Show of hands from smartphone users in the room. Who here has ever wished that they could get some of the notifications from an app, but not all of them? That's almost all of you. Yep. So knowing that, we definitely wanted to add support in the Android system so that users could have more granular control over an app's notifications. In O, we're introducing channels, and here's how it works. You define a channel for each notification type that you want to send, and then your users are able to make decisions about notifications at the channel level. Let's look at an example. Suppose that we are all the designers of an app for Crane Air, a fuss-free corporate airline that caters to the frequent flyer, and here's all our existing notifications. We've got a pretty sweet program for our frequent flyers, or as we like to call them, executives. We have a set of notifications for our customers about the points they've earned and their status in the program. Now, all of these notifications you see here have to do with the executive program. So let's make a channel and call it Executive Program. Now, we occasionally also offer discounts and deals to incentivize our customers to book more flights. So let's group these notifications together in a channel and call it Discounts and Deals. Now, when we categorize notifications into channels, we want to look for similar subject matter and similar importance to users. Here, we have a number of notifications that could be sent in the hours and minutes leading up to the flight, so they're pretty important. Let's create a channel for them called Flight Updates. And now, with this example in mind, let's shift over to how users experience channels. The UI design for channels is optimized for the #1 most important use case, which is, I don't want this type of notification from this app. Now, without channels, any support for this use case has to come from within the app with settings to block notifications by type. Now, how does a user find out if an app provides this? They have to open the app and look at the settings. And it's not like all apps are going to do it the same way. But a lot of the time, there won't be any way to block notifications by type. And at that point, the user has to decide what they're going to do. They can ban the app from sending any notifications at all. They could uninstall the app or just live with it. And none of these are ideal. But with channels, it's a different story, one that's straightforward and consistent. Let's check out the UI. Now, we at Crane Air know that a segment of our users love to celebrate when they earn points or reach a new status. So whenever they land, we notify them about how many points they earned on the flight and how close they are to the next status level. But maybe not all users want to be notified like this. Some might not want any notifications except the ones that are essential to functioning in their daily lives. And they know that they can get this information in their monthly statement. They're fine waiting for it. So to stop this type of notification, all a user has to do is touch and hold it, which lets them see the channel, and then they turn off this switch and tap Done. No more executive program notifications from Crane Air, but they'll still keep getting the others, like those handy flight updates. Now, our aim with channels is to make it possible for users to get most, if not all, of their notification control needs met in line or one step away in settings. Now, in settings, users can decide to block all notifications from an app. And new for O, an app can show a dot on its icon when it has notifications waiting for a user. But if the user doesn't ever want to see a dot for that app, they can prevent the app from showing it. Users can see all of the channels at a glance and decide which ones they want. They can view and edit settings for a given channel. More on that to come. And if the app wants to provide other settings beyond what's here, the app can have a link for the users back to a screen in the app. This approach, bringing more notification controls into the system, makes the user experience more convenient and consistent. So that is an overview of channels. And next, I'd like to talk about the new behavior model for notifications in O. And I'll start with the research that informed it. Some people are putting up with unwanted notification behavior because they're reluctant to use settings. You heard about this from Julie. So the opportunity here was to make it easier for users to understand and control notification behavior. Now, let's compare the current behavior model with the new one for O. In the current model, the app developer uses a field called priority and sets a priority level for each notification. That level maps to a set of behaviors, and some of them are customizable by the app. For example, if you choose priority level high as the app developer, you can have your notification make sound or not. You can have it vibrate or not. You can have it peak or not. It's a lot for a user to follow. In the new model, priority is deprecated. And instead, the app developer sets an importance level for each of their channels rather than for individual notifications. And there's fewer customizations that the app can make on that behavior. Here, you see the inner workings of priority levels. I won't read this out to you, but let's compare it with importance levels. As you can see, we've gone down from 5 to 4 levels and reduced what can be customized. We are intentionally trading flexibility for simplicity so that users have a better shot at understanding what the heck is going on. We're letting go of allowing each notification to behave differently so that we can guarantee users that all notifications from the same channel behave the same way. In the current model, a user can control an app's behavior but has no insight whatsoever into the app's intentions as they're making decisions. But in the new model, the user gets a clear picture of app behavior as they make decisions. So it's the difference between I can make sure that this app won't be able to do X versus I can see this channel does X, but I'm going to have it do Y instead. I'm going to show you what I mean by comparing the UI. In the current UI, if Show Silently here is turned on, then it's predictable. But otherwise, the user has no clue how notifications from the app will behave. In the new UI, the user just needs to look at the importance setting to see how the channel will behave. And if they don't like it, they can choose a different setting. In this new model, Android creates a settings screen for every channel from every app. This is the place where users go to see and control its behavior. The main settings are to block the channel and change importance. If the importance level is high enough, the user has sound and vibration options too, and there's more advanced options. Now, you can also optionally provide a brief description of what the channel does, if it's not obvious, so that users can make more informed decisions. If your app already offers channel-like behavior, please leverage Android solution so that users don't run into the situation where there's discrepancy between an app and system settings. You can link to the system settings screen either at the channel or the app level. And if you want to offer channel controls beyond what the system offers, for example, letting users specify notification and email preferences in the same place in your app, you can have a link back to your app settings. And that's an overview of the new importance model. Next, I'll turn it over to Justin to talk about other new things for O.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm Justin Barber, and I'm a visual designer on Android. And I have to start with an apology, because many of you probably showed up for this session hoping for a Justin Bieber concert, and it's not happening, but I still have some pretty interesting stuff to talk about. So visual hierarchy is the focus of O. And if you remember last year in N, we completely redesigned notification templates to become more flexible, modern, much cleaner. And the new features in O that I'll be covering were really built on the foundation that we set in N. And also on Julie's amazing research. So that's where I'll start with the research insights that really led to what our approach in O. So the first insight was that people are overloaded with notifications, and it's hard to find the important ones. I'm pretty sure we've all been here before. And in Julie's research, we uncovered that users were building associations to determine what was important for them. So if the phone made a certain vibration tone, or they saw a certain color of light blinking, or they'd see a color in their notification, they were making associations to determine whether or not this was important enough for them to spend time on. But that can be frustrating, misleading, and above all, time-consuming. So our goal for O is to present notifications in a way that helps users sift through the noise, not just to build more associations, but to build a consistency and a trust. You should know where the important stuff's going to be before you have to go looking for it. The second most important insight that led to our approach was that people are the VIP notifications. In absolutely all scenarios, who is more important than what or when. So the opportunity here is pretty simple. Make people notifications VIPs of the drawer. People matter the most, and notifications is really a communications hub, so we really want to emphasize that in this space. So as I mentioned before, N focused on individual notification templates. And in O, we've zoomed out to kind of see the bigger picture and how they all fit together in one experience. Specifically, by improving the hierarchy of notifications that appear in the drawer. We did this by designating 4 different types of notifications and 4 different buckets for them, represented by these yellow blocks. Before I get into the detail of each different bucket, I'll give you the high-level overview. So the first bucket is for major ongoing. This is things like a phone call. The next is people to people, like a message from a friend. The third is general notifications, the best of which are timely reminders. And the fourth are by the way, or BTW. And these are the 4 buckets of notification types and how they're organized within the drawer. And the purpose of this is to ensure that notifications most critical to read first are shown first. It also creates consistency. When you pull down the drawer to find that specific notification you're looking for, you'll already know which area to be looking at because you'll become familiar with these sections. So we're enabling users to build associations through this ordering. And lastly, we're going to be ranking notifications within each section. This means if you have 2 message notifications, they're not going to be separated by something else in the middle. They'll always appear together. So it'll be a lot easier to scan the notification drawer. So now you have a big picture. Let's drill down into the details of each bucket, starting with the first one. Major ongoing notifications are really for time-sensitive content users should actively be aware of. This is like phone call, driving directions, timer, music. And as a developer, to send this type of notification, you need to be running a foreground service with importance higher than min, or using a media style with media session for music notification. And this type of content is for content that's using device resources that directly impacts real-life context. And the things that match that is a really, really short list. The type of notification will rarely be appearing in the user's drawer because the context that requires it is a very rare situation. So in N, this is kind of what these types of notifications looks like, right? They're not very visually distinguished. They don't necessarily always appear at the top of the drawer. They can be lost amidst the other notifications. And if you wanted the proper prominence to really gain that association for the user, you had to go with customization, which led to inconsistency with the rest of the notifications. So in O, what we're doing is we're pulling that color from the app and filling the background with it and guaranteeing a top spot in the notification drawer. So these will always appear at the very top. But again, because they're so prominent, misusing this type of notification for something it's not meant for will be very obvious to users. And with the channels that Rachel just described, it'll be really easy for them to block this type of notification if it doesn't align with what it's really meant to be. Falling into this category is also music. So in N, you can see that the templates are, the music template, the media template's the most different template that we have compared to all the others, but it still feels really generic, and it doesn't really look different from other notifications. So in O, we've integrated the album artwork into the notification and drawn out the most prominent colors for the background and as an accent. The result is a beautiful, lively notification that really celebrates the artwork and the artists behind the music that we really love. And I found myself pulling down the notification drawer as I listen to music just to see what kind of colors that song generates. Now for the next section, people to people. This is really for content from a person, like a message or a missed call. And as Julie mentioned, people are the VIP notifications. So we're going to put them right at the top of the drawer in the #1 position, since major ongoing is going to be pretty rare. To get this type of notification, you should be using messaging style with direct reply or attaching a contact to it. So as it stands today, a message notification is really not that valuable until you interact with it. There's like one line of the message, so you don't know if it's worth actually expanding and reading. And then you still have to make the decision if you should reply to it, and you may not be able to reply to it directly within the drawer. You have to jump out of the drawer. So it's really just not that valuable. So in O, we've made one really subtle change that has actually made a really big impact on the messaging experience. And that is that we're exposing more lines of content in the collapsed state of the notification. So now you can read up to 3 lines of the message without having to spend the time expanding the notification and deciding what you want to do with it. And we're continuing to invest heavily in this area of focus, and we're looking forward to making even more improvements, especially around direct reply, coming soon. This next bucket is for general notifications, and the best of which, as we documented in material guidelines and Julie's research backs up, is really meant for well-timed and informative task reminders. And in O, there's no behavior or visual change in the representation of these notifications. But it does play into the next bucket, a BTW. And today, there are a lot of notifications being sent in this general bucket that really should be sent in O as a BTW. BTWs, by the way, notifications, are meant for contextual or informative but non-urgent content. We heard a lot of stories from Julie's research about how people felt so overwhelmed. If content in the drawer isn't urgent, it should be sent as a BTW. Things like weather updates or traffic, or suggestions and promotions. So earlier in this presentation, Rachel used Crane Air as an example of how to organize your app's notifications into channels. If you remember, there are 3 different channels: executive program, flight updates, and discounts and deals. And that last category of discounts and deals is an excellent example of what should be sent as a BTW notification. And it's pretty simple to send one. You just need to set the importance of the notification to min. So in N, the visual representation of these notifications is pretty equal with all the other notifications. The only difference was a slightly different colored background. It's a pretty heavyweight presentation for content that's actually very lightweight. It's bothersome to users. It takes up a lot of space. So what we've done in O is we've taken the app name and the first line of the notification and simplified that down into a single line. So the new presentation is really meant to feel lightweight so that users don't feel bothered by them. They don't need to manage them because they're out of the way, and it's OK if they can glance at it and don't want to take action on it right now. You can also set your notification to automatically expire so that users also don't have that burden of having to manage them as well. The advantage of this is that instead of risking annoying your users by sending a notification in that general bucket, you can send it as a BTW instead. This way, you don't have to hurt users' trust by risking something. You can just put it in the BTW section. Also, the full functionality still remains. So if the user taps on this BTW, it expands the full notification. You get all the color. And if the notification has actions with it, those will appear as well. So when you put it all together, it comes together really nicely. You can actually tell a very intentional order within the drawer. And when we compare that with N, that's when you can really start the difference. You can really see the differences come out. If you squint your eyes and look at N, which is on the left in the black phone frame, you can't really tell which notification is which at a glance. But if you look at O, it's really clear. You can see the major ongoing at the top. You can see the BTWs at the bottom. You can even kind of tell that it's a people-to-people, a message notification because it's taller than the rest. Now you can also see in N how when there's an overflow of notifications, those notifications got stacked behind the ones that were visible. This doesn't match up super well with the spatial model of the full-width notifications. So in O, we've improved that spatial model and made it feel much more unified. We have a really beautiful animation, and the point of this is to correlate the notifications of icons of how they appear in the status bar with the notifications that they are in the drawer. And again, yeah, you can pretty cool, right? This is something we're really, really proud of. And again, it wouldn't have been possible without those template changes that we made in N, right? So we're taking steps to unify the whole experience. You can also see how instead of stacking at the bottom, overflow notifications fit into a shelf. And we have a really beautiful experience going on. I'll just let it play one more time. Oof. All right, so this is the last feature I'll be covering pretty briefly, and that's snoozing. And this feature came directly out of user research. So the insight was that people need to remember the things they need to do. And today, you only have 2 options if you can't deal with the notification right now. You can either dismiss the notification and count on your memory, which if you're me, never works. Ask my wife. Or you can leave the notification in the shade, but it can get lost amidst a ton of other notifications, right? It's either or. So our opportunity was to give users more ways to do this in the drawer. So let's say you're in a meeting and you get a text from a friend asking you about dinner. Now you're in the meeting, so you can't reply right away, but you know as soon as you leave the meeting, your mind's already going to be on to the next task, and you're not going to remember to reply. So instead of letting the notification linger in the shade, or linger in the drawer, or dismissing it altogether, you can snooze it, and this is how. You can do a partial swipe, which reveals 2 different icons. You'll notice it's an additional icon to the gear that we introduced in N. And this is the button for snooze. So if you tap this icon, the notification will automatically be snooze, and you'll get a confirmation of this snooze with an option to undo it if you need to. So snoozing the notification will set it to come back that set duration with the exact same interrupted qualities that it was sent with as before. So if it made a vibration tone when it came in the first time and you snooze it, it'll vibrate again the second time when it comes back. So if you want a different time than 1 hour, you can just tap that arrow and you'll get a few different options to change that duration. And the option that you select then will then be set as the default duration the next time you snooze a notification. Pretty simple. That's what we have to show you for the new notifications in O. And if you're interested in finding out even more, especially from a more detailed engineering perspective, there's an earlier talk, What's New in Notifications, Launcher Icons, and Shortcuts, that we'd encourage you to check out. We're really excited about these improvements and believe that these features are not only beneficial to users, but will also increase the quality of engagement with their apps. Thanks so much.